Hello, this is Henry Chamberlain. Welcome to another Comics Grinder. And today I have the distinct pleasure of presenting to you Nick Cagnetti. His work can definitely be considered art. It's definitely polished to perfection. So all you fans, you already know all about it. Here is Pink Lemonade. The thing that struck me might be interesting to mention is that a lot of people might think they know Pink Lemonade, but this is the whole thing collected in a deluxe edition. So this might be a different Pink Lemonade than people might think they know. Is there something to what I'm saying?
Yeah, that whole hardcover was just for San Diego, and there's some little bit of differences in there with the different cover, and then when you open it up, it's got all the comic strips. With the soft cover, you don't get to see those quite as well, but the hardcover, you get to see all the comic strips really nicely when you first open it up. So that's pretty cool because the comic strips are like the original work I did with the characters. So you open it right up and see all that.
I remember Pink Lemonade pretty much from when it started, maybe a little bit after, but what I like to do is I really frequent my local comic book shops as much as I can, get information firsthand from the owners, and the owners who really love what they're doing, they're a fountain of information. And I don't live in Seattle anymore, but I used to always go to Grumpy Old Man, and the owner there, Alan, he tuned me into Pink Lemonade, and he was just so impressed with it. And this guy, he knows his stuff from Golden Age, Bronze Age, everything. And he was just so captivated by it. And then I got the bug. So I do have some of the original singles, and I was trying to find them. I couldn't for the life of me, because we moved a couple of times now. And I have some boxes. I do have long boxes of comics, but I couldn't find the ones I was looking for, darn it.
Yeah, back in the those were published by It's Alive back then, the original version. Only issue 1 and 2 came out through It's Alive, and then there was also there was a holiday one shot which had the comic strips and 2 other short stories. Those actually aren't in the trade or the hardcover. Those other 2 short stories. So there's 2 short Pink Lemonade things that are only in a little holiday special from It's Alive.
Well, I know the fans love hearing all that, and I want to bring up one thing that fans will be quite moved by: the fact that Drew Ford is no longer with us. He was the main
guy. Heartbreaking. Never could have imagined something like that happening just so quickly, And
I'm gonna just go ahead and show you some of my Easter eggs here, because not to digress too much, but stuff like Howard the Duck. Because I tell you, I was looking through my long boxes, stuff like Omega the Unknown. Here's one that is very obscure, Deepest Dimension. This was a collection of comics based on work by George Clayton Johnson. And the list goes on. I mean, it just goes on and on. Jeff Parker, I love his work. Mysterious.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to see this one?
I have actually, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot here that has not missed, you have not missed out on. But, you can name almost any creator, and I will have some opinion on it. Sometimes I'm bad with names, but I know more than I sometimes realize about comics. And well, anyway, Drew Ford. What drew me to him right away was the fact that he was just such a champion of offbeat comics. uh, stuff like going back to the Fish Police, stuff that he did with Jerome Charon. I forget the Family Man. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
It just goes on. Sam Glansman. It just goes on and on. And yeah, so
Yeah, he was like the only one keeping stuff like that in print and for people to still see.
and he would
So
almost he would introduce new stuff. So tell us about your connection with him, how he helped to get you on the right track, I guess, if that's the right way to put it.
yeah, well, I was working on this book, issue one of Pink Lemonade here back in 2019, and I finished the first issue, and I was hoping to get it published and start going other places with it, because up to that point I had just been self-publishing stuff for the longest time, and I felt like I needed to do something different. So uh, I think just somehow like through Instagram, I might have met up with Drew back in the day, and he we just went from there. And yeah, I mean it was it was a good experience, and I think he he has a true love of comics, like you said, just championing new stuff out there, and always be grateful for that.
Well, tell us about your love of comics. Let's backtrack a little bit. Maybe you can give us, for somebody who doesn't know anything about Pink Lemonade, give us the classic elevator pitch. How would you get people excited about it? They didn't know anything about it.
Oh man. Well, it always changes. Just about any time I say it for about what Pink Lemonade is. I mean, I think the easiest way for me is just saying it's like a story about, trying to be yourself and
Yeah.
somehow, using comics to do that, and just sort of this whole, being somebody who grew up with them for forever, being surrounded by all this, especially right now, it's just pop culture saturated landscape with
Yeah.
superheroes out the wazoo. So it was really just kind of in that mindset, like, well, what's like the meat and potatoes of all this for me? Like, why do I still love this stuff? And just sort of wrestling with those ideas through that Pink Lemonade character, and sort of the journey she goes on, sort of getting taken advantage of by these corporate entities, and trying to maintain her sense of self through all that. I think was sort of a thing that I was just kind of grappling with at the time. Just yeah, yeah, how things can go with like characters. Sort of, sometimes they might miss what they're about, or miss what creators put into them, and stuff like that. So that was a lot of it for that. But as far as my own sort of background with comics, I mean, it's sort of just how I learned to read and write and draw, and everything right there from early memories with probably like the earliest thing I can think of actually is just like a coloring book from with Spider-Man from like the 90s cartoon, just filling those in. And then
Mhm.
from there my mom got me we went to the bookstore, and they had those big black and white essentials back in the late 90s with reprinting all the early Marvel stuff, Silver Age stuff, going back to like the first almost 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Those are some early formative memories for me, is just digging into the classic Spider-Man stuff. And going back to the coloring book thing, I would fill in those with crayons. Since I was so young, I thought I should be coloring these in too. So that was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, pretty shortly after that, my mom started taking me to comic book stores. We had Atomic Comics. Uh, they were a pretty big chain back in the day in Arizona, They had a few locations, and they were really cool. Um, but yeah, we started going like every Friday, and we eventually learned the new comic day was Wednesday. And we'd be like getting the stuff saved for then to so we wouldn't miss anything. I mean, I feel like I started reading it was Spider-Man, mostly, but I feel like I started reading at a good time because it was sort of a moment where Marvel Comics was taking in lots of different voices. Like they had titles like there was Spider-Man's Tangled Web. That was a good one because it had a lot of different creators on there from places you wouldn't typically, see on like a title like Spider-Man. Like uh, one of the best ones that I would continuously look back on was there was two issues with Darwin Cook doing some
Oh,
Spider-Man, and those are just some brilliant standalone books. There's a Valentine's Day one and a Christmas one, and they're just really nice.
oh wow, yeah.
And so stuff like that.
Well, yeah, when you say Darwin Cook, that gets to my heart because I recognize the name immediately. Sometimes people seem to name drop and for the sake of name dropping, but that really does mean something. Um, I wanted to just come back to Howard the Duck for a moment because that's like my secret sauce or whatever. Most people gravitate to something they just instinctively they know it's authentic. There's something weird about it. And of course, Howard the Duck, the movie didn't do so well, relatively speaking. I think it did all right, actually, but not super spectacularly great. But yeah, the whole thing about Spider-Man is that it can be anything you want it to be. It can be the most slick, most impressive corporate creation, or you can take it as indie as possible, with it being Marvel Comics, and they actually give you quite a leeway when they want to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think just sort of experiencing things like that, especially at kind of a formative age, was pretty conductive to me wanting to do this stuff so fiercely, and books like especially those few Darwin Cook Spider-Man books were something that just I would continuously go back to for years and years and treasure something that something that fleeting.
He has a very, for lack of a better term, an angular, very fine line type of work. And everybody has their own look. It's been said, you said it, maybe some other people have said it, that you're influenced by Mike Allred, for instance, or Dan Clowes. And I would describe your work, and this isn't anything new, it's very dynamic, very upbeat, a very polished style. And you've done it for so long. You definitely have your own look. There's no doubt about it. And you have your own owning of the of pink and yellow, your own color scheme. Can you talk a little bit about your style?
Oh gosh, I I mean I've always been drawn to lots of different kinds of you know comic book art. Like I lots of recent back issues when I was younger was lots of mid '90s Spider-Man Clone Saga stuff and lots of more extreme looking things. So I have a big soft spot for lots of stuff like that. So I mean I think it's really trying to find a blend of sort of clarity with some bombast thrown in. I feel like that's a big thing for me, and I don't know. I like things to look kind of quirky, so it just kind of naturally develops that way after a while. Like I've been you know seriously working on independent comic stuff for like over a decade now, and it's kind of funny whenever I look back on like my really earliest stuff, because can kind of see like the inklings of that through line going through stuff like Pink Lemonade, where that all kind of develops. Like the earliest full issues I did was of a series called Infinite Wonders. These are actually free online. People can read them if they want to. They're just on my Radical Realm Comics website, and people can look at them. They're from this 2013 through like 2015. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely like, work in progress kinds of looking things, but I think it's kind of funny going from like the first issue of that. I'm like really hesitant with the background stuff and being all super experimental, and then slowly, like as it goes on, just getting a little bit more confident with the storytelling and putting things in scenes. So yeah, I mean, even going to like Pink Lemonade #1, that was a big thing I was trying to push myself with, was making myself draw as many things that were kind of things that might be seen as uncomfortable to try and make look natural, like having to do lots of things with like a kid and predominantly throughout the issue, or animals, and heck, having main character on like a motorcycle the whole time was something that was kind of daunting. So, I mean, that's just a thing I have tried to be conscious of, is just trying to push myself with doing different things that, trying just to keep trying getting better.
Yeah, that is so well said. Of course, the first issue is burned into my memory, and then it was a treat just to go through the whole story, and it gets metaphysical. There's so much going on, and you get to know the character. Uh, yeah, it's like a favorite Twilight Zone episode, because I each panel, it's almost like a panel per panel. There's so much fun to savor when she's in there eating macaroni and cheese with her new friends she's just made, and it's so surreal because and she doesn't know who she is, and the mom and the girl, they kind of just go with it. They don't really know who is this woman, and we're not sure how old the Pink Lemonade is. I'd say maybe almost pushing 30, maybe. Who knows? How old would you put her at?
I always kind of imagine like mid 20s.
Mid 20s, yeah. Because
Yeah.
she's a woman, and people say, "Hey, lady," and but she's a young at heart type.
Yeah, that was a thing I tried to do throughout the whole series, with, sort of setting up a kind of vibe where, things weren't so hammered down, like definitively, like characters' ages, or where it even takes place, or when it even takes place. There's a lot of clashing things with, like, one of my favorite bits is Ron Radical with his big extreme persona and his little 90s flip phone, and seeing people with like flat screen TVs and big CRT TVs and all kinds of stuff. There's some cell phones in the final issue too, but modern cell phones. But I had fun with like that aspect, and especially with like the fake advertisements really fed into that stuff too. Just sort of trying to live vicariously off of the energy those would give to the reading experience of single issues from that era. I feel like they had a lot of personality in them, just with their wackiness. So I wanted to sort of use something like that to try and inform the try and glue it together, and use those things to kind of feed into what's happening in the main story as well.
And you have well, that's her name, Pink Lemonade. There's no other name. It's a little awkward saying it that way, but Pink Lemonade. She will say stuff that it's hard to do. It seems so easy once it's done, but people will say, "Well, that's something I might say." You managed to do that, or she'll say, or do things that seem very specific, not generic, like the whole idea of becoming involved with Ron's journey in life and helping him discover or rediscover his passion for becoming a painter. All of that, it's just so quirky, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, that was a fun thing with the Ron Radical character because that goes back to like even before the Infinite Wonders superhero thing I did. That was an incomplete work, Ron Radical. I did a thing with him and a friend back in high school, and just never finished it. This Ron Radical character just kind of hung around for like almost a decade, and then as I was working through the first issue of Pink Lemonade, it sort of came to the realization that that would be a perfect place for that character to wind up, and you know, thought about it some more, and there was real potential for uh, an arc there that would complement, you know, Pink Lemonades in a real interesting way. So that was a fun kind of full circle moment, getting to repurpose a character like that and give it new life. And you know, going back to my love for 90s comics too, and you know, just sort of the idea that even these characters who are known for their explosions and stuff, you know, maybe they might be known for making messes in other ways. So it's like paintings and stuff.
Now, am I mistaken, or is this you in your own comic? Are you Bam?
He definitely looks the most like me. I definitely can't deny that one. But the name was always kind of a reference to Sam Raimi. He's
Uh-huh.
uh he's one of my favorite movie directors. But somehow the name Bam Whammy came up, but the character definitely looks the most like me. I don't think it was like an intentional thing at first, but I definitely ran with it after a certain point.
Well, all the artists that get so immersed in their work, they maybe can't help but include themselves in. Is there anything you can tell us about the feeling of being inside your own comic?
Well, I did a book with one of my friends. It was called The Spirit of the Shadows. It was a horror book back in college, and then like the year after that, we did a short film of it, and my grandma made the costume and everything, and I got to wear the costume and be the main character, sort of, you know, walking around with this monster costume on, and my friend did the voice after the fact, so we both sort of got to be that character in really fun ways. So you know, it definitely does happen, and but like that one sort of sticks out to me as just like a uh really cool experience, you know, because
Hmm.
the suit that my grandma made, I got a bunch of these ribbons for her to like sew onto it, and these ribbons had like metal wires in, so you could like pose them more. So this whole time I'd be like getting poked by these metal wires, so it felt like it was really like embodying the monster because it was like in pain getting poked the whole time, you know.
Well, Pink Lemonade, she's an idealist, and she and OJ Bot are on a journey. They both don't know who they are really, so it does get metaphysical toward as the further on you go into the story. And the whole thing, I guess you could say, is about seeking purity, trying to go back to a more innocent time, and when OJ Bot was really OJ Bot. You could rely on OJ Bot. What can you tell us about those feelings to go back to a pure time? Was that must have been very important for you to do that in your book?
Yeah, I mean, working throughout the whole thing, I had the basic idea of where this whole thing was going from the get-go, but working on it throughout all that, it really became sort of a cathartic kind of thing because there was a lot of sad stuff happening through, especially so the last few years, and it really was a thing where I really ended up needing those things more than I thought I would as I was working on them. And I think a fun thing with the OJ bot stuff was sort of the idea that it's still like a fictional character, but it's like what people make of it in the end of at the end of the day, because the you got the true creator stuff there where the robot it's just like a robot at the start of it, but through the creator going and interacting with it and telling it stories and being nice to it, it like embodies that hopeful spirit of what the OJ bot's supposed to be. But on the other side, you got the movie producer guy ends up making like his own version, and that embodies all the stuff that he thinks, and then that's like the big mean gritty version of OJ bot. So I think it's really just like a thing about influences and trying to be positive and put that stuff out there because it reflects back on other things. And a funny thing with the OJ bot character like going back a decade now. That was a thing that was actually just born out of a spelling mistake. I was messaging a friend, and I meant to write like "oh boy," but I wrote OJ bot. So ever since then, it was like instantly like I gotta get this into something somehow, and I couldn't get it into anything else I was working on because it was kind of too silly for those things. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized, you could really ascribe some more meaning to something even so seemingly silly as the name OJ Bot. Like to me, it became sort of a beacon, funnily enough, of just like something that could be pure,
Yeah.
vitamin C power.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure to have you. I think you there's a whole magic to doing a an interview, or a whole art to it, I guess. And I want to make sure that if is there something that you want me to ask you? Is there something that you've been wanting to share with people lately that's been on your mind?
Um, well, I mean, I'm working on the next series with I'm doing it with a friend. Uh, I just previously mentioned the Spirit of the Shadows thing. We're sort of taking those ideas and doing a whole new, fresh take on that character and that whole concept. So, so much kind of time removed from our original thing back when we were in school. We felt like our voices have kind of, matured as far as creatively speaking. And, you know, it, for the longest time, we didn't really have that in creatively for how to approach anything new with that. But finally, something just clicked, and it's like feels really good. And I actually got these little black and white ash cans. They're just like previews of the first issue that I'm gonna end up having with me at I'm gonna be at a local show in March here in Arizona called Arizona Comic Art Festival, and that I'll have these there, but I'll also have them, on my shop on the Radical Realm Comics website, and they're just little previews of the book in black and white so far. I'm into the second issue now, and one thing that I'm really happy about so far is, I feel like even just coming off of the last issue, Pink Lemonade, compared to even the first issue of this, I feel like I can see some growth there. So that's one thing I'm always hoping to see.
Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Two different tracks. Let me do the first one. The first one would be people that are trying to get into the business. They can get frustrated and they think there's a secret handshake involved, or how do you get into that exclusive clubhouse, that treehouse where all the cool people are hanging out. But the truth of it is that you just have to do the work, and then the other part is promoting the work. So there's two tracks you have to be on. Be willing to be dedicated to your work and be willing to go out there. And you're one of the success stories of a grassroots effort, unless I'm mistaken. That you must have approached comic book shops one-on-one, the way that other folks like Michel Fifai, or I can't pronounce his name. How do you pronounce it? Fife?
I'm To be honest, I'm not sure either.
I think it's. Go
Uh,
ahead.
I believe it is Michel, but I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I think it's Fife,
Fife.
but
Correct.
don't quote me. He's amazing talent, and I got to meet him in last year at Heroes Con. He's a really nice guy too. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We're only human, but Cooper, of course, is now a classic, and I know that was a
Yeah.
grassroots effort, and yours was a grassroots effort. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's started real small, like Pink Lemonade. I did a printing of the holiday thing on my own back in like 2018, only like 100 copies maybe. And so it sort of went from there. I mean, back then I had Jim Rugg asking me like if I when Pink Lemonade was going to get published or anything. So that was like a thing that kept driving me along was, people waiting for this stuff to get out there. So I felt like I really had to make that happen somehow. So I just tried anything I could and just tried to keep working regardless. Because, even after the fact of, you know, fortunately, crossing paths with Drew Ford there, I just kept working on that stuff, and I mean, having a presence on social media, I do think helped too, because that is how I was eventually approached by Oni too, because you know I ended up just sort of stopping the whole train on the series for a little bit there when uh, the pandemic started, and had some lots of stuff to take care of with family stuff. So it was really just sort of had to hit the brakes for a while, and just sort of tried to take the series elsewhere. And Drew Ford was real supportive of that too. So I mean, like any, there's no set path for any of this stuff. I was really just kind of going by my hair, like every step of the way. And I one time I reached out on social media just everywhere saying like, hey, I'm looking for a new home for the series. Because I'd already tried again a lot of other places, and it wasn't really going anywhere. Uh, I had like half the series done at that point. And then after that, an editor over at Oni reached out and saw one of those messages, and they had picked up the series from It's Alive when it was originally coming out, and held on to that. And that's how they knew about it, and sort of went from there. So really, it's like a thing where anything you can do, you never know how it might uh, pan out or where it might take you eventually. So I mean, I don't feel like I'm in any secret club or anything. I'm still just kind of like with the Spirit of the Shadows thing. I'm just kind of sitting off in my own little corner, just working on a thing that I want to work on, like I did with Pink Lemonade, and hopefully hoping to take it to some places soon. I don't know where it'll end up. Could be Oni again. We'll see. I don't know. But it's just good to keep working on stuff you care about. And one thing though that I do think has gotten a little bit more tough is for me anyway, is like the social media stuff. Like I tried to be pretty relentless with pushing stuff, and I feel like it's kind of harder anymore. Like just trying to get your stuff seen. I think something to do with like the way the algorithms are on the platforms. It's just kind of harder just for that approach. Uh, I don't know. It's tricky always, but you just got to keep trying anything you can, really.
Yeah, I think the overriding theme is persistence and determination. Going back to some of the trailblazers like Jessica Abel, Paul Pope. More recently, I think of Francois Vignon. I pronounced that name correctly. I know Francois, and I know that he had something to do with the book. He did the lettering
Yeah.
of your book. Can you tell us a little bit about the lettering process? How is this different from what might have been in the original, for instance?
Well, my lettering was nowhere near as nice as what Francois was able to do because I mean, and two, because my scripts were totally like unedited, so there was a lot of like real run on, maybe too full of ideas in some places with the dialogue. So having an editor like Zach to be able to uh, to look at that stuff and sort of pare down things where they might need to be pared down was really helpful too. So that is another benefit for the final edition was some stuff like that. And like the choices that Francois was able to do on there was just some really, really neat stuff. Like even right there, you see with Barzabelli Jr.'s dialogue, just having the fun inverted stuff for the alien talk, and any of the stuff like in the fifth issue was like insane with all of OJ Bot's dialogue and the different the changing dialogue bubbles along with the changing visuals. That's something that you know that's incredible. And
Yeah, yeah.
I got to work with Francois again on. I just finished a short story not too long ago with Zach Quaintance writing it. I had a lot of fun doing it because it was a little bit of a Spider-Man parody, and but also something with like a little bit of fears of artificial intelligence stuff sort of creeping in, but in kind of a hopefully accessible, fun way. But Francois was got to letter that one too, and he does some really really cool stuff on that pretty much all the time. It's that's like the final thing, it makes it all come together right there.
Yeah, he's quite remarkable. Titan is his baby that he did his grassroots effort. That's how he got on people's radar. And so yeah, and he just keeps going. He's one of the great guys in comics for sure. I wanted to ask you, so when you did the original pages, did you hand draw the balloons, hand letter, and then you had to go and redraw the whole thing, or did you do just the art and then another layer for the lettering, or how did that come about for you?
Well, I lettered them all originally on the uh for the comic strips. I did all that stuff by hand originally on Bristol board, but for the series here, the full length series, I drew the whole thing digitally, which was a new thing for me. So that was a big learning experience. But lettering it all, I also, I did the bubbles by hand for every time, and uh, had to. I typed everything in, but I had to like really adjust the dialogue every line because there was a lot of manual adjustments in throughout the whole thing, which it was kind of a tiring effort and probably made myself do more than I needed to do if I had just like maybe lettered it by hand on like I did before with the comic strips. So I ended up having like I believe the fourth up to the fourth issue lettered originally. Only one and two saw the light of day with my original lettering. But yeah, I think the final product is a lot better for having that having Francois come in and do that pass to really bring it all together a lot more. And that was one thing that I was excited about with Oni was having the resources there for helping with bring it together a little bit like that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Zach Soto, who's a grand man of comics himself. He's a legend. So you're in really incredibly good hands over at Oni Press. One other thing, so I got like a roadmap. I can just keep going, but I was kind of intrigued. Maybe your thoughts on indie versus mainstream, and of course, there's a lot going on here in Pick Lemonade, where there's a super uh, high-powered, ultra uber mainstream version of Pink Lemonade. So there's lots of fun stuff about the friction between indie and mainstream. And some people swear, oh, comics are just comics, but truth be told, the indie is one thing and mainstream's another. And it's nice when the two combine, but they are two different things. And if you have a scale at the extreme end, it would be most authentic, and on the other end would be least authentic. Do you have any thoughts on that, on indie versus mainstream, or?
I don't know, cause like I feel like sometimes I don't like fit in either of them, cause
Uh-huh.
I feel like sometimes my stuff is maybe too indie for the mainstream and too mainstream for the indie. Cause I've been very influenced by both throughout my life so far here, and like I came into comics from very mainstream stuff with Spider-Man and but you know dovetailed from there and had a lot more discoveries and influences come up and flow into my own work from there. So I mean, I try and blend the two of them together just because that's what I like naturally. So uh, yeah, I mean, I love both kinds of things. I think a nice thing about comics, like lately anyway, is there are such a breadth of voices and different types of comics you can get, and I think that's an important thing for people to have stuff that they could be interested in if they see it. So, I mean, I just like trying to do the stuff that I enjoy making personally. So, I mean, that's always my goal, just to, make stuff that makes me smile.
That's a perfect way to wrap things up. Yeah, there's so many ways to go about it. So kind of in a way, comics are comics. But when you can get that hybrid of the artfulness and the polish, the polish, and having everything so finely polished, like Adrian Tomina comes to mind. If that's your vision to have things so refined and polished, and that's just your natural comfort zone. That's where you're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, this is the book, Pink Lemonade. I encourage you to seek this out. Thanks so much, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you having me here, Henry. It was a real nice talk.
Thank you.